again. I'm really excited.
3, 2, 1, go. All right, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, I can't believe you're my first guest. I genuinely can't believe. I literally just started and talked about it for quite a while now. We actually started it. You're my first guest. I'm really grateful for it. So thank you very much. I just realized the questions I've written down are in my phone. Never mind. Never mind. I'm sure we'll overcome this challenge.
Okay.
I can get my laptop. So, okay, hold on. All right, got me laptop.
Okay.
So for all the dear listeners and viewers out there, thank you for joining us.
Welcome everyone.
Yeah,
amazing podcast. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. But thank you for inviting me. I mean, I'm really happy to be part of this, and it's really nice that we've been talking about it for so long. It's really nice that we actually got together and we can talk about Denmark, right? We are going to talk about Denmark.
Denmark will be the topic, most definitely, and not just Denmark, because another thing what I thought about was basically of 2 Eastern European foreigners in like in foreign countries in Europe, and what I also want to touch on is why did we choose this path that we leave our home country and try to get education or a life at some other country. Why? So that's the topic I would like to touch on. And I just feel we are kind of in very similar shoes. So I just want to hear your views and how did you experience everything, basically. But just give me a second. Let me pull up my iCloud account and my notes, just so I have them ready.
Typical rich Westerner with the iCloud account and laptops. Well, I have to say the money of George Soros is really paying off.
Yeah. Undoubtedly. Thanks, man.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Thanks, boomer. But yeah, so I think we were really similar in terms that we both moved out really early. I mean, we were both 18, I think, that when we moved away from Hungary.
No, it was 2015. So I was literally 6 days in my 20th birthday. So I just passed 20. And so I moved on the 26th of September 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I moved out the August of 2014.
Yeah, but so you did finish school before me, didn't you?
Yeah, a year earlier, exactly. So that also goes there. So I lived in Denmark for 6 years now. And I mean, it was a really interesting experience for me because when I was 16, I already decided that I will not pursue my higher education in Hungary. And I found this really great opportunity to live and study in Denmark. I mean, I was looking at a lot of countries, to be honest, also Britain. But I found that, in my opinion, it was really, really expensive to study in England.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I didn't want to start out my adult life similar to a lot of American students, that you take out a really big student loan and you are basically starting out not on zero when you start your actual adult life, but in minus. So I didn't want to have that experience for myself. And well, thanks for the Danish socialized system. Well, I basically am able to get an education for free. And actually, throughout my education, I also get something that's called SU in Danish. It's basically a government monthly stipendium that every Danish citizen gets when they study. And it depends, because if you go to high school and you are not living with your parents, then you get a little bit lower, so around 3,000 Danish crowns.
So this is some social money, isn't it? So it's like you get it no matter what. You just have to be currently in education.
Yeah, so it basically depends that if you are in education, then you get it. But for example, if you are in high school or gymnasium, then if you don't live with your parents, you actually get more as opposed if you would live with your parents. So it also depends kind of on your income. But everyone who is 18 and is in a higher education, so in what is it called, in other universities or something similar, then they would get roughly like 5,600, I think is right now the amount, which is, I think, like, I don't want to lie, it's about like $600 a month, around that.
It's quite a lot, actually.
Exactly. So it's a good amount of money, but you also have to remember that you don't get the full amount, so you also have to pay taxes from that. So that's also something that you actually have to keep in mind.
Well, you get benefits, and you have to pay taxes on your benefits.
Exactly.
What?
So
how does that make sense? Like, you get money from the
just
government, and you have to pay your portion. Like, why not just pay
exactly.
less? Why do you have to pay?
But that works. Exactly. There's a lot of weird stuff in Denmark, so you have to pay taxes of everything. So even if, for example, if you would receive unemployment benefits, you would still have to pay taxes off of that. So
I think it could be because maybe this is how they work out your pension. So even like if you're in education, and you get this money, and the way they deduct the taxes, it could be for the tax agency's reference, so they can reference that you were actually in education, and this is how much your income was, and this is how much taxes you actually like paid in, and maybe.
I mean, it's part of it, yes, but to be honest, it's also another part is that when you study and you get this money, it actually looks like that you are getting salary from the government. So it counts as a salary, not as a benefit, so to say. And because it's a salary, for example, right now, because I'm studying again, I have to choose which income where to put. So, for example, you have 2 different tax cards in Denmark, and then you can choose which income you want to be taxed more and which income you want to be taxed less. So that's also something that you have to kind of keep in mind. But I mean, there's a lot of
So if you were to have a business, you could decide to be taxed less on that. So if you were to have a business now, you could decide to have or pay less taxes on your business, but while you also receive this salary/benefit from the government, you could decide to pay higher taxes on this.
Yeah, but it really depends what kind of business you have, and it also depends how much you earn, because you are only entitled to get this amount of money if you earn less than 13,600 Danish crowns a month.
Hold on,
if you earn more.
Let me just do a quick. Please continue, but I just want to make like how much 1 Danish krone is, just for reference for people.
Yeah. So it's roughly like 13,600 that you can earn before tax of your normal income that you can receive this government stipendium. So that's also something that you have to learn. But someone like a foreigner as me, I can only get this money if I work 43 hours a month.
A month? So, that's not too bad. Yeah,
exactly. But I mean, it's completely fair in my opinion. And anyways, Denmark is a really expensive country, so I would much rather put it in a way that SU is nice because it helps you with the rent. But you work because you want to spend some money out on the weekends and all that stuff. So I think that's I think the best way to summarize it. But I mean, still you can have a quite decent salary even if you're a student.
So just as a reference, 100 Danish krones equals to 11.32 pounds on the 29th of January 2020, and So it's not too bad in pounds. It's basically £11 for 100 Danish krones. How much did you say you get every month?
So from the government, it's 5,600 now because I'm a student.
So that equals to
like
what?
633
pounds. Jesus, that's quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
What?
But I mean, you have to keep in mind that you also pay a lot of taxes. So you have to pay roughly around 41%-ish tax from everything. So, and I mean, it also depends because in Denmark we have a progressive taxation, which means that the more you earn, the more you have to pay.
Yeah.
But that basically really doesn't affect normal working families.
Yeah.
It's much more when you get to like this 500,000 amount of Danish krones, when you have to pay 55%. So that gets really expensive then.
Well, annually or every month?
Every month. But I mean, it adds up.
Well, who
annually you also have to.
So you have to make 5 million krones in one month.
500,000.
Or 500,000
in a year.
So in a year, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So annually you have to earn 500,000, and then you have to. So for example, you would have the normal tax until 500,000, but then first Danish kroner you earn after 500,000, then you pay 55%.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's the same here in the UK. It's 20%. Oh no, it's nothing until I don't know, £12,600, and then up until, I don't know, 40,000 or 45,000 is 20%. Above is 40, all the way up to 120. I'm not sure, but it's the same. This could be another podcast idea. Like, what do you think? What's the better? Like having a progressive or having for. Like, do you think? I mean, it all depends what kind of society.
It's a really interesting question, exactly, because it's always like, okay, what is society thinks, what is more important. So personally, I think that, in my opinion, it's not fair to pay so high taxes, because the way that I understand how this is fair is that basically, the more money you make, it also means that you contribute much more to the economy itself. So you shouldn't pay more just because you earn more. Because you anyways, for example, if the taxation itself is flat, that means that you would all anyways contribute more to the, what is it called, to the economy. But, or sorry, to the government. But I mean, it's basically just depends on the values of the people, and in Denmark it's quite a left-leaning country. So and I have to say that in Denmark it works pretty well. So I'm really satisfied how things are working here, and I really am not complaining at all about the high taxes that I have to pay, because I think it is a system that works very, very well. But
how many people live? What was the population of Denmark?
Roughly around 5.5 million. So it's not a big country, not at all. And I mean,
and also it's relatively homogeneous, isn't it? It's mostly Danish people. It's not a lot of like foreigners.
So we do have I don't want to say a huge Muslim population, but I mean we have a quite sizable Muslim population. But I would say that it is a very, very homogeneous country. So. But I mean, I think it's also a very well working, because everyone, I think, like Denmark is one of the few countries that actually speaks English, from the age of 5 until
definitely
everyone. So,
I
mean, especially
strange.
like from, I think you had a lot of experiences like that everyone speaks quite good English, in my opinion, here. So and I think that's also a reason that a lot of foreigners come here, because they are not really forced to learn another language. Like, for example, if you would live in the UK or France, for example, then you would have to be kind of forced to learn French to get by, but not in Denmark or not in the UK, for example. So
English is in the UK, so
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but it's not.
Also,
it's not a super
hold on. I was
international
just
country.
thinking. So I was just thinking maybe, like, I know it's been 15 minutes since it started, but I was thinking maybe we should do like a smaller introduction, because I think this is kind of random. We just got started in the middle.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe we should just reverse a bit and just because I want to, when I ask some of these questions, and I'm sure we will go off topic for quite a while or quite a lot, but if you could, because what my intentions with this podcast is, I would like to be about you and your experience as an Eastern European foreigner in Denmark is what I'm trying to do with this podcast, because I would like to introduce, through my podcast, I would like to introduce people to, the general population. So if you could just, it doesn't have to be 5 minutes, but in less than 5 minutes, if you could just introduce yourself quickly and, just talk about yourself for 5 minutes, if you could.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, my name is Botond, and I am from Hungary. I was born in a small, not so small town. It's the fourth biggest town in Hungary, called Miskolc. It's the same town that Ben is from. And basically, I was studying English since I think I was 6 or 7. And throughout my studies, I always went to bilingual primary school or gymnasiums. So that was a really big part of my education, to study in English. I don't know. I think that really carried out throughout my studies this love for languages. I mean, in high school we also learned French, and I think because of that, I really had this idea about just moving abroad and just trying to see something new, and really used all the years, all the hard work that I put in the English language. And I think it kind of sort of came naturally that I came to Denmark. And as I said, I was like around 16, then I decided that I want to study here. And of course, my parents were like, yes, of course, blah, blah, blah. But I was really adamant about it. And still 6 years later, I'm still in Denmark. So I think it's a really nice country. I was really happy to move here. But I have to say that as an Eastern European, I was really shocked about a lot of cultural things, I have to say. Because in Denmark, for example, there is this really, really big emphasis on, for example, the equality between different genders. And in Hungary, for example, we have, and I think you know this quite well, that in Hungary we have this idea, this notion that, for example, if you are waiting in front of a door and the lady comes by, then you open the door for her. Now, in Denmark, this does not exist, or you would let old people or girls front for the bus, for example, or do these chivalrous things. So this would not exist in Denmark because you are basically being sexist because you treat the women differently based on her gender. So for me, that was actually really weird because, I mean, of course, I understand why we do this, but still the way I was brought up and I still do these things, and it's really interesting to see that still girls, for example, they get very happy actually, even though that there is this very strong rooted equality between the sexes. They are still really happy to get sometimes a little bit of a preferential treatment.
Can you imagine being yelled at the bus for like there's a pregnant lady and then you're just like, oh, excuse me, miss, would you like to sit down? And then she's like, you sexist motherfucker.
What the fuck did you just say?
Yeah.
So I mean, I also got a few of this, but I have to say I'm not it was really interesting to get used to it. So for example, in Denmark it's absolutely normal and quite expected if you, for example, go out on a date, that the girl would invite you first for a drink, for example, or it's not
Really?
always the guy. Yeah,
Well,
exactly. So
that's
I
that's
was
most
also
men's
really
dream.
invited. Yeah, but I mean, it feels weird, right? Because
If
that's not
it,
how
yeah,
you were raised,
yeah.
and then what is the norm. But I have to say that it's also nice, this idea that you don't also you want real equality. So you don't also want the benefits, but you also have the shitty parts that you have to pay, for example, something. And I think that's a nice idea. And I don't want to offend anyone, but I just think that it's a really well working idea in Denmark. So that was something that really shocked me. The other thing I would say was that everyone was really smiling and happy. And in Hungary, I don't think that's really the case.
No,
So
those gloomy motherfuckers.
yeah, I mean, maybe if you live in a really small village and everyone knows each other, then you kind of greet each other. But
Yeah,
I
but they
mean,
always complain. It's always the weather.
exactly,
It's
exactly,
always something. They
yeah,
can't.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would much rather say that in Denmark it's a little bit different. So everyone is quite usually really happy. So I used to live. I only lived in Aarhus, by the way. That's the second biggest town in Denmark.
Represent.
Exactly. um, and it's really interesting that still it didn't really matter if I lived in the outskirts of the city or in the city center. Right now, for example, if I go to shop and I see the same cashiers, then we greet each other and we smile and have a little chat. And I mean, I really like this sense of little community belonging. And it's the
Yeah.
same when I lived on the outskirts and I would go for a walk and just we would greet each other with the neighbors or just random people walking by. And I can really, to be honest, relate to it. And I really like this idea that even though we don't know really each other, I think it's a nice community feeling. And I think that's a really great part of Denmark.
Also, I think we have to say that it's a relatively big city or town, so that's also interesting. You don't tend to find that in big cities or towns you you get to be a bit more closer with people, because it's there's so many people around, you just really don't care. Like as long as you don't bother me, I won't bother you. Just leave me alone. I will leave you alone. And if someone like says hello, you're just like weirded out. Like why did you say hello? Why what did you want from me? You just feel weird. But if you go to a small village, it feels a lot more communal. But what you're saying is that in where you live at the moment, Aarhus, is the people there think it's still a small town.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a small town. I mean, okay, it's quite a big town, but it still has
it's
like
communal.
this little exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really nice part of the.
Do you reckon it's because maybe this is how people are raised there? Like they're raised as you have to treat strangers the way you expect to be treated or something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's this really old Danish law. It's not just Danish, it's actually part of a lot of Nordic law. It's called the Jante which is basically the idea of you are no better than anyone else on the street or anyone else. And it's a really interesting idea how that really translates into nowadays society. Because still, doesn't matter
what does it mean that you are not better? Sorry.
So it basically it kind of encompasses the idea of the 10 principles from the Bible, and also made this Nordic twist on it that just because, for example, let's say I would earn much more than you do, I should not feel entitled to be a better person than you are, for example.
But how is this a law?
It's not a law that it's in the book and you cannot feel it. This is kind of a thing.
Okay.
So it's a thing from the past, basically.
So it's more like a traditional
kind
of law.
Exactly. But I mean, nowadays even you can see a lot of things that foreigners find really weird. So for example, if you would go to any kind of restaurant in Aarhus or Copenhagen or anywhere in Denmark, or you would see a big field, there is a really, really common tradition that you just leave the baby there, and you would go eat in the restaurant, and then you just have the baby in front of the restaurant. So you could still kind of see that it's there, and of course you have these modern technologies with the little walkie-talkie, so you can hear if any problem is there. But there is this really deep-seated idea in Denmark still that, for example, the baby still needs to be with itself, or it still needs to be alone and just get used to being alone. So I think that's a really interesting concept. And there was a really famous case with a Danish mother I think it was in New York in the 1990s, that she basically did this normal Danish tradition that you leave the baby outside so it can get used to the weather and sleep and whatever. And she did the same in New York. And as it turns out, the Americans have a really completely different idea about raising kids. And the lady in question, she was imprisoned, and they took the baby away from her for endangering it. And actually, the whole Danish government, the whole Danish government had to intervene and explain the situation, that this is just a cultural difference. So in Denmark, for example, there's these little things. And until today, I lived in other parts. In the outskirts, it was really normal when I lived in a flat and there was a big field in front of us, that the ladies, they would just push the trolleys outside and leave the baby there for 2 hours. Of course, you would have, the walkie-talkie, so everything is okay. But still, it's not something really common. And I think it also boils down to this tradition that you really trust the people around you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's probably a good thing, because you feel like you can, if you live somewhere where you can leave your kid out for 2 hours, that means you feel kind of safe, and you are not stressing about all these dodgy, shady people walking up and down, just the bad kind of criminals. So I agree. When I've been to Denmark, and what you're talking about, I didn't get to experience. I didn't really see any trolleys left alone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it definitely feels communal, and people are more smiley. And I can believe that if I were to have a Danish wife, I would definitely talk about this with her. I wouldn't, like, not here in the UK. There's too many dodgy people around.
No.
But yeah. Shall we do a question and then work through them, because we kind of done half an hour now.
Time flies when you're having fun,
Yeah. Okay. These are in no particular order, or like they're not ranked or anything. So I'm just gonna put them out there. So why did you move to Denmark? You kind of answered it, but if you could just give, like, maybe the top 3 reasons why Denmark and not other European countries or anywhere else in the world.
Okay. I think it has a really great quality of higher education and really good, just general sense of well-working economy. I would much rather say that I stayed in Denmark because I really like the people and I really enjoy being here and I feel home. And I'm still struggling with the Danish language, but it is going quite well. And I have to say that it is a weird feeling that even though I'm not Danish, I feel much more home in Denmark than I feel, for example, in Hungary now. So I think that's an interesting thing. So that's much rather, I would say, I stayed in Denmark as opposed to another European country.
But the reason you moved there is because you decided that the
study,
education,
exactly.
You had the best. So would you agree that in Europe, Denmark has one of the best places to study if you, let's say, like if you don't want to spend a lot of money on education?
Well, you don't really pay for this education, right? Because Danish taxpayers do. But you also have to keep in mind that Denmark is a really expensive country.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also something to keep in mind. But to
Yeah.
be honest, I didn't really. Now looking back, it's not really about the benefits that I'm staying or not these things, but much rather this sense of belonging to this country and trying to help it and then grow it out. So I think I would much rather say that that's why I am here now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely a great opportunity to study here if you are a young person.
Okay. So I think, like, as a segue, I would like to ask, are you going to stay / maybe retire in Denmark?
As of now, I think I will stay in Denmark for sure. I mean, I still have like 3.5 years left from my studies if I count the masters. And after that, I would really like to work here, but I would also like to travel a lot. So maybe, but actually raising kids in Denmark is really great, really, really great place to have it. I mean, as I said, it's really safe. The educational system is amazing. And I think you would just get so much great benefits. And I don't mean financially, but much more just in a sense that if you study, for example, at the Danish university, it is really renowned all over the world. So it opens up a lot of gates for you and a lot of possibilities. So I think in this way, I would much rather have my kids in this country because this is a country that I really love. And I think it would also give them much more possibilities that, for example, I couldn't have had.
Yeah, I agree. But just a quick question about my previous question. I remember you said that the Aarhus University was one of the best in the whole world, and what was that one of the other reasons why you might have moved to Denmark or why you choose Denmark?
Like besides the education, or
like no, the particular, like when you went to Denmark, you went to Aarhus. Is that because the Aarhus University is one of the best in the world?
So I actually didn't start out at that place. I was studying at the local college called the Business Academy. But the thing is that the other reason that I chose the Business Academy is that they gave you a really, really interesting structure that even though it's a college, you get a really nice theoretical experience and you get a ton of working experience. And I really, really like that companies would come and visit us from Lego, for example, or Mask or other big Danish brands, and we would get to actually use the knowledge that we have acquired throughout the studies. So I think that was a really great opportunity because I really like this idea that you actually put to use that knowledge that you have learned before. So I think that was also the other reason that I chose that.
So I'm not trying to generalize, but would you agree that in Denmark, the education system is more about the practical instead of the what we got in Hungary, the theoretical stuff?
So it depends because I sought out exactly that's why exactly this university called the Business Academy. So these different academies, they are much more practical, hands-on knowledge combined with the theory. But for example, right now that I'm studying at the university, it's much more about the theory. But I would much rather say that even though I was not part of the Hungarian educational system, so I don't really know about that part.
I mean, you did go to primary and secondary school.
Yeah, but I mean the university level, I wasn't part. So, but from now that what I can see and compare with my friends who did go there, is that we don't have these useless subjects, for example, that they just put it in so they can sort people out. We don't really have that in Denmark because it's really expensive to have a subject in its own. So why would you spend extra money and heating, for example, for the classroom and pay the teacher's salary if it's all about sorting students out, So
you think that's different because like if the government does the education, you would think it's not optimized, it's not efficient, so you would have all sorts of classes. It doesn't matter if it's worth it or not, it's just have more classes, whatever. But you say, or what I think you just said is that they would like to keep the costs down and try to make sure people get the best education without all the stupid shit.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, because I can really see that in Hungary, for example, I had so many friends who would study literally useless subjects that you would never use in your life. Why then spend the money? I mean, really, because it really makes no sense in my mind that you would study and waste time and energy on a subject that you will never use in your life.
Could you give an example?
Yeah, so for example, one of my friends, he was studying to be a programmer, and they basically had to learn all these weird programming languages from the 1980s. So for example, these are programming languages that you used for huge machines. Why? You don't use these machines anymore. Why would you use it? So for example, these are examples this is a really concrete example that I think it's completely useless. Because there are so many other, for example, programming languages that you would teach the basis much better than all these old ones, for example. And they're much more useful than a programming language that was designed to operate a full room, you know.
I understand what you're saying, but I think also it depends, because if you, let's say you want to create a new programming language, and if you know how it started and know the basics, basically that means you have a more general understanding of how it all builds up, because the programming languages nowadays are mostly built on old ones, and those are built on older ones. So I think it's just also speed. If you want to do something very efficiently, you shouldn't use, I mean, it doesn't matter nowadays because computers are quite fast, but maybe on like slow machines, it makes a difference to know the older programming language is what started it all, than to use newer ones. I don't know what's going on. It's just an idea, you know. It's just,
I just don't think it's efficient to teach people this, but
yeah.
And I mean also, you know, because the thing is, this was, as I said, to operate these really, really old, huge computers. So these computers didn't even have, you know, a screen itself. I mean, you would just feed information in and you would get information out. So I don't really think that this is something useful. Or one other case is that this friend of mine who recently graduated, at one point they had to learn programming languages from old floppy disks. I mean, come on. This is not relevant anymore. So why would you learn it? I mean, all of the education that I was part of was the oldest, I think it was like 2015. The oldest data. And it makes, in my opinion, no sense not to keep up with the modern technologies, because why would you learn all these old things if it's completely irrelevant and not useful anymore? So I think Denmark has a really, really good idea about this innovation and constant innovation. So I think that's a really good part of the educational system.
Yeah. I mean, also nowadays it's even more difficult because, let's say, when, you know, back in the 1500s, let's say, when you went to university, what you learned was basically true for another 200 years after you died. So, but nowadays, what you learn might be different. Or like when you start to learn something in just the beginning of the whole university experience, by the time you finish, it could be completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, not like basic principles, but
still, I mean, there could be new things. Yeah, so that's why I think I just really like what is going on here. So yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next question. How do you find living in Denmark? I mean, you also talked about this briefly, but if you could just, what I would like to know is Denmark the kind of country where, I know you haven't lived in like all around the world, but would you say Denmark is Denmark better than Hungary? And what is, like, list maybe 3-4 things what you really really like.
I mean, it's really hard to say, right? Because it's really again about preferences. In a way, it's really difficult for me to live in Denmark because I'm missing out a lot of milestones about my family in Hungary. I'm also constantly missing a lot of Hungarian food that I grew up with and the Hungarian taste. So this is something that I struggle with quite a lot. But on the other hand, I really, really enjoy living in Denmark. And I mean, you know, if you have a full-time job, you really don't have to worry about whatsoever about anything, to be honest. So
as long as you get like an okay or even a decent job, you get to feed yourself, you can take care of yourself, so
exactly.
you can have a good, like, the baseline of the life you can have is quite high.
Exactly. So I think that's, from that perspective, of course, it's much better. But I mean, it's really difficult to compare Hungary and Denmark, I think, because let's just say that history treated countries differently. And I mean,
without
40 years of socialism, I think it has its own problems. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
Denmark's going to be the next socialist country with all the equality and all that. Well, hopefully not. But okay, so I mean, these questions are a bit intertwined, but I would like to ask another one about society, and like, they feel free to express themselves. They have this equality. Just in a few words, what do you think about the people in Denmark, about their how like they are able to express themselves, like they are able to be like they're able to show that they are gay in public, maybe. Like in Hungary, it would be like you wouldn't be beaten up, but you would definitely, like, people would
be looked up on. So I think that kind of equality really shines through in Denmark. So, for example, when it's the Pride Week, all the buses, for example, they have the Pride flag on them, and then the Danish flag, to represent that this is part of the culture and part of the country and part of just the culture, I would say. And I mean, really, all the different shops, they try to show how big support they give for the LGBT community for that 1 week. But I mean, it is a really big thing. And I mean, I have a lot of gay and lesbian friends, and it is not a big thing. They are treated how they should be treated as people. You know, it's not something that it's super celebrated in Denmark or super looked down upon. It's treated as it should be. It's treated that they're people.
Do you reckon, like, in percentages of the population, are there more LGBT people in Denmark because they are able to express themselves and they don't have to hide it, than, let's say, like in Hungary, just to compare it to?
I think it's just because it's more visible. I wouldn't say there exist more gay people because they're free. I think it's just you can see more gay people. I'm pretty sure that when you look at all the different countries, they have roughly the same percentages of gay people, but the visibility is really different. So in Denmark, you will actually see guys or girls walking on the street hands in hand and or kiss or whatever, and no one would really care or bat an eye. I mean, of course, you would have people who don't agree with it, but it's really the minority.
I mean, that's a good thing, because on one hand, really don't care about other people's sexuality. Like you really don't care that you're gay. Like if someone tells you that they're gay, like I don't care, man. Like it's not like you come up to someone and say, "Yo, I'm heterosexual." It's like, okay, like
because
I don't
it's
care.
not something that should be regarded as super important. I mean, I will not treat you more differently just because you are black or because you are Jewish or because you are gay. I don't think these are qualities that you should really care about.
Yeah, I think,
and also just an interesting thing. So, for example, in Denmark, you can also get married if you're gay in a church. So, for example, that's something that's exactly.
Oh yeah, you showed me that video about the guy who came to Denmark
from the US.
and then,
I was completely shocked that
that was funny.
This exists. Yeah,
but Denmark is Christian, isn't it? It's like proper Christian, but
we have a cross on the flag.
So but it's not it's not a Christian flag. It's just a cross, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, well, actually, it is. I don't think it was coming from the Christian times. It is called the Dannebro. It has its own name, and the Danish people love their flags. They put it on the birthday cake, and they put it on the Christmas tree, and they put it everywhere. So, but it is also one of the oldest flags in the world, actually, still in use. What's going on, Ben? You completely disappeared.
Oh no! Oh fuck! The electricity is gone. Fucking what do you say? How do you say it? I don't even know how do you call this, but there's no electricity. A blackout, yeah, that's it. Fuck's sake! Oh no!
Well.
Yeah. So my screen is giving us a light. I can't believe. Are you kidding me? There's a blackout right now.
What are the chances? Oh my!
Oh man, I genuinely want to continue, but I don't. It's still not coming back.
Well, in Denmark,
hold on. Let me look.
Reusable
let me look
electricity.
At the street. What the? There are street lights and there are lights across the road in the houses. Why are there no lights in here?
Maybe you have to flip the switches inside the electrical box. I don't know how it's called.
This is a bit strange. Definitely lights are on across the road. Man, I haven't even got a torch, like a flashlight. I'm genuinely bummed out.
Maybe we can just wait and try to see what's going to happen.
I can't. It's so good that I have 4G at least, so it's still recording. Man, this is... I can't believe, man, what's going on? Okay.
There is not one boring second in the UK.
I just don't know what's going on, man. Oh, I would like to suggest, shall we do 2 parts? Like we do...
Yeah, I think that's...
Let's finish it now, and then maybe do the second part once the electricity... no. Let's do the second part maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, because...
this is not a good condition for this.
Yeah, this isn't exactly...
It's a weird ending for this, yeah.
So, let's finish part 1 now, and then let's do part 2 tomorrow, if that sounds okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then we can finish up whatever, where we were. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I was, it was... I'm really glad that we got to finally do a podcast. I really enjoyed this, man.
Yeah, it was a really fun talk, I have to say.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that I'm really grateful for all the listeners out there. I don't know who are you, but thank you for listening to me and
to
us.
No one there. Yeah. It's my mom. My mom listened.
My mom.
She was like, "Man, son, I didn't understand the word."
It was shit.
Yeah. She said, "Yeah." Anyway, yeah. It's a podcast. It will grow. I will get better. So
that's how it should be. But I was your first guest, so thank you very much for this opportunity, and it was a really great talk.
I'm sure we will, or I definitely hope we will get to do many, many more. And once
it sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, once I will be able to get where I will have my own studio, I will get you to fly over, and we do a proper podcast live.
Wow!
Or the next time we see really each other, we do a proper, live podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, man.
Okay.
I really, really, really enjoyed. Time flew by. 50 minutes. If this blackout would have happened, I think we could have gone on forever.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's the beauty of these talks, that you can basically just talk forever. So but thank you again for this opportunity, and have a good time of the day you are listening to this.
Yeah. And just a final question. What I would like to do after all my guests, just as a tradition, I would like you to list or say something which you're grateful for. What are you grateful for?
My meth pipe, my heroin dealer. No, what am I grateful for? I think I'm really grateful for life. I think I was just thinking about that today with my girlfriend. We were talking about compounding interest.
It's a normal topic you talk with your girlfriend about.
But now we were just talking about this interesting idea that how compounding interest works, and if we would live 75 years, then this is how rich we could get from this interest. And I was just thinking,
it's the eighth wonder of the world.
Yeah, exactly. But I was just thinking, how weird it's going to be that probably there is going to be that time in life or time in the world where I'm not going to exist, and I just genuinely felt so unhappy about it. So I would say life in general, I think I'm very grateful about, and just all the blessings that I have, because I have a great family, and I have a great girlfriend, and I have a great friends. So I just all around feel so lucky to be alive and experience and enjoy all of life's wonders, I would say. So yeah,
that's a great answer. I really agree with it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your time and your just being able to have this conversation. I'm grateful for this, that we actually finally got to do it. After such a long time we were talking about this. So thank you very much. And on this note, I would like to, end the podcast. So thank you very much, Botond. I wish you all the best. And then, hopefully we'll get to do this tomorrow, if possible. Finish the second part. Yeah.
If electricity is back in the UK.
Yeah.
If not, I can send you in a little package.
Yeah. Get to generate. All right, man. I love you. And see you later.
Thank you, man. Bye.
Bye.